are you doing tonight? We're here at Chattanooga State, the HVAC R class, and tonight we want to show you the proper way to hook up your manifold gauge set to current EPA standards. First thing we've got to do to hook up the gauges is we've got to look down here at our data plate. We've got to make sure that our gauges can support the refrigerant that is in this unit. And if we look right over here, we see that we've got R22, and we are good to check that out. All right, while the unit is off, or before we get started, we've got to check our manifold gauge set to make sure it is up to standards. So the first thing we do is we inspect our hoses to make sure that there are no cracks. We also have to inspect for dry rot. The way to check your hoses for dry rot is to bend your hose. If it stays the same color, it's good. If it turns white, it's bad, and it is time to replace your hoses. The next thing that you would do is inspect your O-rings. Take off each hose, look at it, make sure that the O-ring is there and it is clean. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get the high side hooked up, and then while the unit is running and pressurizing, I'll check my other O-rings. All right, first thing I've got to do, I've got to back this off a little bit so that I can purge this line and make sure I get any contaminants out as it gets started. So as soon as I get refrigerant, I hear refrigerant here, I'm going to shut this back down. There we go. Little or no loss. Now we've got pressure there. I'm going to go ahead and get this machine kicked on, check the other pieces, tell you a little bit about the gauges while we're waiting for it to get our 2 to 3 minutes. All right. Should come on any minute now. There we go. Go ahead and inspect these O-rings. All right, if you want to pull it here a second, we'll look at this gauge. All right, we got two gauges here. Our blue side is our low side gauge, and our red side is our high pressure gauge. On the outside of each gauge, it tells us what the pressure is in each, on each side. And inside here, we've got several sets of numbers. Each one corresponds to a different type of refrigerant. So what the low side gauge tells me is at that pressure what the evaporating temperature is for that particular refrigerant. So for example, we're looking at R22. So at 50 psi, it's going to be at about 25 degrees. If we look over here on the high side, same thing, but this tells us actually the condensing pressure for that refrigerant at that particular temperature. All right. We got about another 10 or 15 seconds here before we hook up the low side. Go ahead and get it ready. Get it backed off a little bit. All right, that gets us right at our 2 minutes. Get it ready to purge. There we go. All right, now we got pressure on both. We got 50, almost 50, right at 48 psi G on our low side, right at 150 psi G on our high side. Now, removing the gauges, we're going to go backwards. We're going to go the opposite. First thing I need to do is shut off my ball valve or my low pressure fitting. Low loss fitting on my high side, which is just turning that little switch off. The next thing I got to do, I'm going to crack this open a little bit so I can get all the contaminants out of these lines, and then I'm going to recover back into my low side. All right, I've got this cracked open. going to open it up, and as soon as I hear air, I'm going to shut it back down. All right. We're good there. Now, open that, open both sides. Go ahead and let it clear both my lines. And as soon as my pressure equalizes on my high side and it matches my low side, all the refrigerant has been pulled out of the lines. I will close back each side on my gauge. Now I can remove the low side, and then I'm going to turn the machine off and wait about another 2 to 3 minutes for it to equalize and to take off my high side. All right, the reason that we want to wait and take these on, put them on, and take them off at our lowest possible pressure settings is to minimize the amount of refrigerant we lose. R22 is coming out of this machine at minus 40 degrees, and if we're working on a machine that has R410A, it's coming out at minus 60 degrees, and it will burn and frostbite your hands pretty quickly. So we want to minimize how much of that is actually going to blow back on our hands, and also how much we vent into the atmosphere. So we're going to give it about another minute here, and then we can remove our high side line, and then we'll be good. While we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and put my cap back on. All right. And that is how you set up, that is how you put on and take off your gauges to the current EPA standards. Thank you.